But by 2010, I decided to go public with my findings. And so I accepted fully that there's a creative force behind everything. And everything I did was training for what I'm doing now. All the things that used to be important to me really aren't anymore.
Yeah.
My whole value system has changed. I found that I was drawing towards myself magnetically information.
Oh.
And I find that when you get on the path to truth,
Yeah.
if you're aligning yourself with right action under natural law,
Yeah.
you do draw these experiences in.
Okay, welcome to the Drake Michigan podcast. I'm very excited. When I made a list, I had a wish list, Mark, when I first got going on this project with Kev. A number of names at the top. I had Santos Bonacci at the top there, and I had Mark Devlin right underneath. So I was very excited with the opportunity to bring you in. Obviously, when I had the pub back in the crazy period, you came and did a talk, which was very exciting for me. So welcome, and also we've just had a festival, and you did a talk there. So it's been great for me because I've spent probably through meeting you, I bought a couple of your books, and because I'm so busy a lot of the time, I used Audible, and I managed to get 1 and 3 in, and I need to read number 2 yet. But in terms of the knowledge and the research that you have done, it's unbelievable. So first of all, thank you for coming.
No worries.
Tell me how did you, first of all, your passion's obviously like me, music. How did you fall into the kind of knowledge of knowing that it's actually being used in a different way to change society? What was the catalyst there for you?
It all started round about 2007, 2008, that sort of time period. Yeah. And by that point, I'd read many of the books of David Icke.
Yes.
My dad actually put me onto him because my dad is a bit of a prodigious reader.
Fantastic.
And by that point, he'd been through Eric von Daniken, Zecharia Sitchin, and he'd got onto David Icke.
Right.
And he recommended that I read his books. And at that point, my impression of David Icke was probably the same as most other people in the UK.
Yeah, the perception.
Which is that he's a nutter.
Yeah.
That poor man's lost his mind, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
But my dad said, just read the books, give them a chance, and see if they resonate with you.
Yeah.
So I did, and I found that they answered so many of the questions that I'd had up to that point.
Right.
So I'd already started questioning why the world is so unjust.
Yeah.
Why there was war everywhere, famine, injustice, poverty.
Yeah.
And those books made me realise that all that stuff is by design. It's not accident. It's not human nature.
Yeah.
It made me realise that there is a shadowy so-called elite.
Okay, yeah.
A secret society network sitting atop every aspect of human society.
Yeah.
And so that put me on a new path of research when I came to that realisation.
Yes.
And one of the things that I really wanted to get a handle on is how that played out in the music business.
Okay.
Because up to that point, I'd been a DJ for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I'd done radio shows. I was fairly successful as a club DJ.
Yeah.
Playing R&B, hip-hop, urban music.
Right.
So I DJ'd all over the UK, and I'd done about 40-odd overseas countries.
Okay.
But I grudgingly started to realise that many of the artists that I was into and many of the music genres that I was pushing were promoting certain agendas, which went against everyone's best interests. So I also got put on at that time to a resource called Vigilant Citizen, vigilantcitizen.com.
Yeah.
Great website, still running.
Yeah.
It's a guy in Canada puts that one out. And he specialises in breaking down occult symbolism.
Interesting.
As it appears in music videos and ads and live music events, Hollywood movies, TV shows, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that website made me realise that the music industry is absolutely corrupt.
Wow.
It's run by dark occultists.
Yeah.
What we might call Satanists.
Yeah.
They're psychopaths. They work in conjunction with military-grade social engineers to change societal attitudes towards certain things and to shape and mould the public psyche. And I realised that music was being used to achieve this.
Yeah.
And one of the genres that was most guilty of it by that point was rap and hip-hop.
Really?
Which I was very much into. That's the stuff I used to play.
Yeah.
And I came to realise that so many of the artists who I'd been promoting were being used to exploit these agendas.
How did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there was a conflict of interests.
Of course, yeah.
Because at that point, I was still earning my living as a DJ.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what else I could do in life. I didn't particularly want to do anything else.
Yeah.
But I felt my conscience was sort of prodding me in the ribs and saying, you shouldn't be pushing this stuff now that you know what it's being used to achieve. So I went through a few years of very awkward sort of cognitive dissonance.
Right, okay.
But by 2010, I decided to go public with my findings, with what I'd come to comprehend about the true nature of the industry. So from 2010, I started doing videos and podcasts and using platforms like Facebook and MySpace at the time.
MySpace
was still around.
Yeah.
And Facebook. And just stuck my head above the parapet. I thought, F the consequences. This has just got to be done.
And how did people take to that? Did you already have a following because of obviously you were a successful DJ, so you already had a following, and how did people respond to these new, because it's difficult cognitive dissonance, isn't it? It's like, especially when it comes to a hero in the celebrity mold, if you like, because I know myself with my love and passion for music, it was obvious in the past few years that these people are just not what they, all the lyrics that they wrote, for example, Rage with the Machine, as I like to call them now, as an album I love. Comply, and then it's like, well, it means nothing now to me. The craft is great, but the actual words mean nothing and it's empty. So what was the response like to you?
I lost about 95% of my DJ friends.
Really?
So there were lots of people that I used to count as friends, that I used to encounter in the business.
Yeah.
And when I think now about how many of those people I'm still in touch with, I've lost about 95% of them. But it doesn't matter, because when I set myself on that path, I gained so many friends, so many great contacts.
Yeah.
I've now got literally thousands of friends all around the world.
Fantastic.
As a result of the work that I've been doing for the past, 13 years.
Yeah.
So I've got no regrets at all about those that I've lost along the way.
Yeah.
There are a couple of old DJ friends who have come to me in recent years.
Have they?
And they've said, we can see it now, you were right.
It's funny how that happens.
It's very big of them to come to me and say that.
Yeah, it's good that they do
but
that.
At the start, most of my old DJ contacts and my industry people that I knew were mocking me, and they were saying, you've lost your mind. All the things I used to think about David Icke, people were thinking about me. Yep. I've lost my mind, I've gone crazy, I'm rambling incoherently. But here we are, it's 2023, it's a different world to 2010.
Oh, it's very different.
Very different. Yeah. It's so utterly obvious now. The agenda is so clear. It's so blatant. It couldn't be more blatant. If it bashed you violently around the head with a baseball bat studded with nails while screaming through a bullhorn, I am an agenda. I am an agenda.
Exactly.
Wake up, you ignorant mother.
Do you not think it's almost like they're trying to wake people up in a way as well?
Yeah, I really think
it's that obvious sometimes. It's like, how can you not see it?
I really do. I really do. I was thinking about that this morning because they're starting to ramp up the nonsense again, unbelievably. It's the middle of summer, but they're still claiming that, it's on the rise again and there's a new variant, the arsehole variant, whatever it's called. And I just think back to some of the stuff that we've been told. A few months ago, we were told that they were testing sewage samples.
I saw that.
going into sewers and sifting through what's there to try and identify variants of the and I think that's a coded way of telling us it's all a load of shit.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I didn't think
and yet
of that.
Still people can't see it.
Yeah, you're probably right. I like it.
It's going to be a real acid test if they do ramp this agenda up again and really try to reintroduce masks and distancing and shutting down businesses and all the rest of it. If people go for that and accept it and have learned absolutely nothing from the last 3.5 years, they are going to deserve everything they get.
There's not a lot you can do, though, is there? It's not like you say, everything's in the face anyway, and it's not like people that are aware of what's going on haven't tried desperately to do that anyway.
We've done everything we can.
I feel that a lot of people are not meant to wake up in this time for whatever the reason that is. I don't know. I just feel that some souls are just not meant to.
Yeah.
And the souls that are, it's almost like there's a mission. I often feel that a lot of people feel that they've got their own personal mission.
Yeah.
At this point, there's a spiritual war going on.
Who knew years ago that we would be in spiritual warfare at this point in our lives?
No, it's
if you'd suggested that to me 20 years ago,
I'd
have told you to put the crack pipe down.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
But, for some reason, there's many of us now, yourself, myself, and so many other people that are on this path, and we're fighting a spiritual battle.
Definitely.
We're fighting on the side of good and light. We're opposing evil and darkness.
Yes.
And we never would have imagined that our lives would come to this.
And it's an interesting thing, because I always look back on my life. Before I had a spiritual awakening around 2012, and my life changed considerably from then. And that's when I started going down the route of corruption and everything else, and almost things started just to come to me, not in a download sense, but I was then coming across kind of I don't know, I'd find a YouTube thing about 9/11, for example, or the Boston bombings or something like that, and I'd be going, well, something's not quite right, whereas before I completely believed it. So I can see my split. Was there a point in your life leading up to where you went to this website and started to learn more about the industry itself? Was there a moment in your life where you went, something's not right about this world?
Yeah, I think there were little clues along the way.
Yeah.
That my life would converge to where it now is.
Really?
So a very early memory that I've got is, well, the very earliest is when I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I used to look at myself in the mirror and think, this is a mistake. I shouldn't be here.
Really? Yeah.
What am I doing here?
Wow.
I just used to look at that little boy looking back at me in the mirror.
No way.
Thinking, this is wrong.
Interesting.
And I was never supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Because my parents were told by doctors that they couldn't have kids. And so they'd resolved themselves to the idea that they would never have a child.
Right, okay.
And then along I pop. I don't know why I bothered.
Because you got a mission.
But apparently I did. So I wasn't supposed to be here. So I remember thinking that when I look back at myself in the mirror. And then when I was very young, I realised that it was wrong for there to be a royal family.
I've always felt that.
Yeah.
I've always felt that.
I always felt it was supremely unjust
yeah.
that one family had all that wealth and privilege.
I've always been like that.
Over and above all others.
Yeah.
And I thought, what is it about these people? Why are they so special? I was
Yes.
probably about 8 or 9 at that point.
Yeah, I think I was younger when I was at the same feelings. I was like, well, why is these people supposedly better than us? Why do we have to listen to these people? I could never get my head around that.
Yeah. I can remember a Queen's Silver Jubilee party, street party, in my road in 1977.
Yeah.
When all the families came out and brought tables out and brought food and drink and stuff. Yeah. And everyone was celebrating the Jubilee. And I was just thinking, why? What is there to celebrate? And then when I was 19 going on 20, this was early 1990, I had, I suppose you'd say, a bit of a spiritual awakening then.
Right.
Because I started to feel different about myself, about the world.
Yeah.
It's as if there was some sort of shift.
Okay.
Some sort of consciousness shift, and I was tapping into it.
Right.
Interestingly, that's around the time that David Icke says that he got his truth vibrations.
That's right, yeah, it was that time.
So right around that time, I was picking up on something, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what to do with it. So at the time, I had an aunt who was a Christian, and she interpreted it as a calling from the Lord.
Oh, all right.
So she said, this is your calling, you've got to come and join the church. So I responded to that because I thought that's what it was.
Sure.
And I believed that I'd become a born-again Christian.
Right.
So I attended an evangelical Christian church for 4 years.
Okay.
By the end of that process, I'd grown very disillusioned with the whole institution.
Yeah.
Didn't like what I'd seen. I saw some hypocrisy in the behaviours of some of the people in the church.
Yeah.
And it just seemed phony and fake to me, that organised religion with all the dogma and all the rules and regulations. So I left the church in 1994.
Okay.
But prior to that, in 93, I'd gone on a Christian retreat to the Holy Land, Israel, or Palestine.
Palestine, yeah.
And I got baptised in the River Jordan.
Wow.
Because that was part of my belief system at the time.
Yeah.
And although I've turned my back on all the sort of dogma and all the loaded stuff that comes with Christianity, I like to think that ritual had some sort of beneficial effect.
I think it will.
It's supposed to be washing away sins and a new sort of rebirth.
And the water's a conductor as well. There's a connection with it all, I think. Right. So very powerful stuff. And obviously the ritual itself it's full of love, isn't it?
Yeah, it's full of good intent.
Yeah, the intention's important.
I think a lot of people in the Christian church, in that institution, have been misled and not being told the whole truth. But their intention is good.
Yes.
They're there to try and help others and do the right thing. There's no malevolent intent there.
Yeah, I think most people are generally good people, most people. Yeah. But we do get distracted or, like I say, misguided. And I think when it comes to, as we know, corruption, greed is a big problem in this world, isn't it? And institutions, like you say, in terms of Christianity or any religion for that matter, there's a lot of greed involved. There's a lot of wealth involved, isn't there?
That's right.
And the people who attend in church on a Sunday morning are not the ones that are, making those decisions, if you like, and those I don't know. They're just dragging people in, isn't they, in a way, really, and then moving them in. It's the sheep mentality again, because we are humans. We are herd animals, really. We're trying our best to think outside the.
But also highly corruptible, sadly.
We are, yeah, of course we are. It's a challenge.
Bribable.
Yeah, bribable, which is a massive problem. Look at again. I don't want to speak too much about the past 3 years, but it's very obvious that people are easily bought. The souls are bought easily.
Yeah, we've seen that.
For nothing, though. It's my job. This is my job. I'm just doing my job.
That's right.
And that, I like, me personally, I found that really difficult because, like yourself, standing up for because your soul is basically saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this. And that was what we did at the pub. It was like, I'm just not doing it. And we lost everything. And I was happy to do that, And I wouldn't have done it any other way, even looking back now when we're X amount thousands in debt and we lost our home and blah, 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 blah. I'd have gone more hardcore now, looking back, rather than being as soft as I was from the start.
Yeah. Well,
because there's a job to do.
Life is for learning.
Life is for learning.
And I often think if back in 1990 I'd interpreted that shift in consciousness in a different way, I might have embarked on the path to doing what I'm doing now, even earlier. But it took another 20 years, almost 20 years beyond that. But I think it all happened for a reason.
Yeah.
So I went through many different processes. After I left the church in 1994, I became an atheist. I was quite a bitter atheist.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because of everything that I'd seen within the church institution, which I didn't like, it led me to think, well, there is no spirituality. There is no creator.
Right.
Which is a ridiculous idea now.
No, but
it's one that I held at the time.
Yeah.
So I gravitated towards the work of Richard Dawkins.
Okay.
Can't believe it now.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's quite an ardent atheist.
Yes, yes.
And I liked his material. So I was an atheist for probably about 13 years.
Right.
And then by 2007, 2008, which is when my dad got me to read the David Icke books, I was starting to come back around to the idea that there's more to this life.
Yeah, that's good.
And by the time I went public with my work in 2010, I was absolutely back on the path to spirituality. And so I accepted fully that there's a creative force behind everything. Yeah. It's obvious, it's self-evident.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could ever have thought otherwise.
But you needed to go on that path, didn't you?
Yeah, I needed that. I needed everything that I went through.
Yeah.
So I mentioned in the talk that I did yesterday that I was absolutely desperate as a radio DJ to try and get on BBC Radio 1.
That's right, yeah.
Or One Extra. And I used to send up my demo tapes every 6 months or so.
Right.
And I even turned up at the Radio HQ and offered to take the programme director out to lunch to explain to him why he needed me on his station.
Of course, because you're ambitious.
Yeah, those were the lengths I wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And I used to get so frustrated when they kept knocking me back. You know, they'd post my tape back to me and say, no thanks. And it used to really wind me up because I felt I needed to be there.
Yeah, of course.
But now I can see, with the benefit of hindsight, that was my greatest gift, not making it on those stations.
100%, because it's almost like, again, I think everything's divine. So you even though you got that frustration, your path was never meant to be that. Your path is what you're on now, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And everything I did was training for what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So my first proper job, I've only had one day job, proper day job, which was in the early 90s. And it was working for a business magazine publisher.
Right.
And I became editor of one of their trade publications. It was for the stationery and office supplies industry.
Okay.
So stationery trade news, office buyer.
Yeah.
And I became editor of Office Buyer at the age of 24. And I got quite a decent salary. Yeah. I was able to buy my first flat at the age of 24 off the back of this job. Yeah. So it served me well.
Yeah.
And the main takeaway from it was that it taught me how to write. So I had a really good group editor who was a very eccentric guy. Very, very odd guy. But supremely talented. He was a genius.
Right.
He looked like a rock star.
Did he?
Because he had long flowing hair and he was actually a musician.
Brilliant.
He was really unconventional.
Yeah.
But he taught me how to write. And also because he was so unconventional, he also taught me it was okay to push the envelope a bit and be a bit daring.
That's good.
Step outside the usual parameters.
Yeah.
So that taught me how to write. And then I got my first radio job.
Yeah.
I was working at a station called Fox FM in Oxford. And then I got my first show on Galaxy Radio in Bristol.
Right.
And that taught me how to do radio shows, how to present, how to interview artists.
Yeah.
So that was that training. And I was also a club DJ, so I was getting records from the record companies, promo companies.
Yeah.
And that made me realise how the industry works and how artists are promoted.
Yeah.
And all of that has been very useful in preparing me for the work that I've been doing the past few years.
Yeah.
Because now I'm writing books, I'm doing live talks, I'm doing interviews such as this.
Yes.
And all of that had to be there first, the grounding period, the training period.
It's training.
It's so clear to me now.
Yeah, but you don't know it at the time though, do you? Because you're just living your life at the end of the day. That's all you're doing. You're just trying to get through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when you get a decent job, if you like, or a decent salary, you think, well, that's success. I mean, but then success can change. Success can be all sorts of things, can't it? That's the thing. It can be.
Yeah.
You know, it's also define what success is. You know, at that time, that's important. But right now,
yeah, all the things that used to be important to me really aren't anymore.
Yeah.
My whole value system has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be financially comfortable to be able to take care of my family.
But it frees you up if finances are important, aren't they? Unfortunately, we're in a world where we need them.
We live in a reality where
we
need them.
We need them.
But I've never been someone that's interested in great wealth.
No.
Even when I was fast asleep, I never lusted towards having fast sports cars and mansions and stuff, yachts.
Yeah.
That was just never me. I only ever wanted enough to get by on.
It allows you. I was talking to Billy Watson about this on a podcast recently. You know, he's an artist, and it's an art form that he just wants to bring out, and without just a bit of this monetary value, which whatever that is, that energy coming in, it doesn't allow him to be free to express himself and be the artist. You know,
right?
I think as an individual, you don't need much, do you? Really, you need time.
No, you don't.
The money gives you time to be Mark Devlin and do the research and get your knowledge out there.
That's right.
That's all it is.
Provide for my family.
Provide for your family, yeah. Exactly.
And it really feels now as if I'm, to a large extent, stumbling around in the dark because I don't know where things are going to go for me.
Really?
I know that I can't go back to what I was doing before. Not that I would ever want to.
Yeah, I get
but
that.
all those bridges are burnt.
Yeah,
like I said to you, 95% of the people that I used to know in the music business, I don't speak to anymore.
Yeah.
I've got no idea what they think of what I'm doing. I like to think that some of them are observing from the sidelines.
I bet they are.
And thinking, yeah, this guy's
I bet
got a
they
point
are.
here.
People are frightened to speak out for their own careers.
Yeah. They stay back in the shadows. But I think many of them are looking at what the likes of you and I do.
I think so.
Those of us that go public.
Yeah.
And finding it of great interest.
I think so. And I think planting those seeds is massively important. The work you've done, though, Mark, is incredible. If I'll put it on record. If you've not read any of Mark's books, then you really need to. And we'll make sure that all your details are in the description so they can buy your books because the detail. And this is where I wanted to ask you as well. How did you go about doing that kind of level of research? Because it's so detailed in individuals such as, say, Jim Morrison. Now, obviously, as you know, I'm a Doors fan and I'm a Pink Floyd fan and blah blah blah, and Jim Morrison is probably the ideal person to talk about in the respect that he is an anti-establishment rock star, so called, but with a military upbringing. And even when I look back now, I'm 17 years of age. Jim Morrison's my idol, if you like. The rock star I'd want to be. I just wanted to be Jim Morrison. And then you watch the Oliver Stone film, and there's even mentioned that he was his dad was a.
It is mentioned in that movie.
Yeah, it's mentioned. Yeah, but he never twigged to me that there would be any kind of link. It's almost then because it was mentioned, and it made it seem like that he went against his father.
Yeah, the movie said that he disowned his father as a result of what he did,
and then he became this
iconic rock god.
Yeah, exactly, and this poet and this that. Yeah. But it's not like that. Which is so. How do you start research digging into that when you've only got sort of a level of propaganda as it is on who this individual is? How do you find out more?
Well, my first musical truth book, which I self-published because no conventional publisher was ever going to touch it,
right,
in early 2016, was the result of 5 years' worth of research. So by that point, I'd been researching the true nature of the music industry for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how I got started in terms of what the first steps were. I just kind of ploughed myself into it. I find the best way to start any job, any task, anything you want to achieve is not sit there worrying about it. Don't really draw up too many plans. Just start it.
Yeah.
Just plough into it.
Yeah.
So my latest book, which I've just completed writing, I can remember at the start of the process, I was thinking, what am I going to make happen in the first chapter and how am I going to develop the narrative? And then I just thought, I'm just going to start writing and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was with my first book. I just ploughed into it. And I found that I was drawing towards myself magnetically information.
Oh, interesting.
So once I'd started, people were starting to come across my radar. They were either emailing me with information or I was meeting them at events. and they were telling me stuff.
Manifestation.
Or I was picking up a book and I'd open it and there'd be some information on that page.
I love it. Yeah.
Or I'd be watching a documentary and there'd be a little nugget of information in there which I'd extract. And I find that when you get on the path to truth, if you're aligning yourself with right action under natural law, you do draw these experiences in.
It's vibration, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all it is. Attraction, yeah. It's the law of attraction.
Exactly.
And that's how it works.
It does work. And you find yourself supported.
100%. I believe that. Guided.
Another thing which I've found more with my live talks than with my books, but I'm often up there on stage doing one of my presentations.
Yeah.
And it really feels as if I'm channeling information from somewhere.
Fantastic.
So I find myself speaking in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it feels as if I'm getting inspiration and help from somewhere else.
That's ace, isn't it?
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm not a speaker like yourself, but I do find that happens a lot for me also. I don't tend to know what I'm even going to talk about, and a lot of the time I won't even plan it. It just kind of comes.
A lot of songwriters talk about that.
Indeed, they do.
Talk about channeling from the muses.
Absolutely.
Bringing stuff in from somewhere. I think Jim Morrison probably made comments like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think, or do you know even, that some of these artists that are obviously used as pawns in this way of societal change, when they're channeling and writing lyrics, do you think they are potentially channeling a dark side from a darker side rather than a lighter side, not realising that that's what they're doing because there's a manipulation that's going on? Or are they used by the industry rather than their gift, if that makes sense, or whatever? If I'm trying to explain myself rightly. So we've say a songwriter writes a beautiful song that people are going to love, but the industry takes them, but because they've got a beautiful song, they're then carried through and they've got a following, and then are they then channeling something else to help manipulate those masses?
Yeah.
Or are they just bad people from the start?
I think there's grades and levels to it.
Yeah.
So you have people like Jim Morrison, again, great example, from a military career family.
Yeah.
And it's quite obvious he was a lifetime actor.
Yes.
He was allotted that role. They wanted him to be that poster child for that counterculture, anti-war generation.
Yeah.
So he was the iconic rock god that was put out there at the front of the doors. I do feel that he was a pawn. He was exploited.
Yeah.
I feel some sympathy towards him.
Yeah, okay.
He fulfilled the role that was given to him. I personally feel that he didn't die in 1971 in a bathtub in Paris.
Well, it's an interesting... I always said this because there was only... Pamela Curson apparently saw him. There was no...
no autopsy.
No autopsy.
That's
and
right.
it was all a bit odd.
Yeah.
And then Pamela Curson died, I think, a year later, apparently, as well.
Yeah,
so.
I think it was 1974 she died.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite possible that Jim Morrison was allowed to retire that public persona because of the family that he came from.
Yeah.
And sort of disappear into the shadows. But with many of the others, it will be different from artist to artist.
Mm-hmm.
So with many of the rap artists, they've talked about channeling stuff when they write their songs.
Okay.
But it's very dark.
Yeah.
So Eminem, for example,
yeah,
his music is obviously very dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Right from the start, he was talking about murder and mutilation
right.
and drug abuse and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Murdering his baby mother and getting his daughter to
Yeah,
help
is
him
that
dump
Kim,
the
was
body
it?
in a lake.
Kim,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And Dr. Dre, a lot of his stuff is very dark.
Yeah.
Jay-Z, some very dark stuff. So with those hip-hop artists, they seem to have been drawing in some very negative influences.
Sure.
And many of them have even spoken of channeling demons.
Really?
There's this demonic entity known as Rain Man, which Jay-Z has talked of bringing in.
I've heard of that.
Also Lil Wayne and also Eminem.
Yeah.
They've all talked about this Rain Man entity.
Interesting.
And it's cropped up in some of their songs. But if you take it back to the early 70s, you've got songwriters like Elton John, for example, David Bowie, and they've talked of that process when they've put together their songs, of drawing it in from somewhere.
Interesting.
A cover story that we get with David Bowie is that he liked to take newspapers and cut them up with scissors.
That's right.
Cut words out of them.
That's
and then
right.
rearrange the words randomly.
And then
come up with lyrics that way. Not sure if I buy that one.
No, I don't think I do either.
But one point to make about a lot of these artists is they're obviously corrupted.
Yes.
They're obviously being exploited and being used and pushing agendas.
Yeah.
But it's still great music.
I know.
This is the problem we have.
It is, yeah.
We can know the truth about who Jim Morrison was.
Yeah.
And how The Doors was likely put together. But it's still great songs.
I know.
I like a lot of their music.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd, there's a lot of suspect elements to that band.
I know. I remember coming across one of your podcasts earlier in 2020 and I was like, no.
Dark Side of the Floyd.
That's the one, It's a great podcast.
Yeah, it's unwelcome information.
It is.
But the fact still remains that the music is amazing.
Incredible. The craft. It's the craft.
And I think the two reasons for that are firstly that these bands get access to the very best studios, the very best producers, the very best engineers.
Yeah.
They also get training at the very best schools, foundations, institutions, so they become master musicians, master singers, master producers, master rappers.
Performers. And the thing is, that, like you said, a lot of these guys, like Pink Floyd, for example, they're educated, and Queen, they've gone through high education.
They're posh boys.
Yeah, they're posh boys, yeah.
Genesis. These groups, they're all public school boys.
That's right, yeah. And they're the ones that you look up to as the rebel almost, but
that's quite a strange thing when you really think of it.
Yeah.
These guys have been to public school. So Genesis were formed at Charterhouse School in Godalming, Surrey. And their mentor was Jonathan King.
No, was it?
Since outed as a notorious paedophile.
No.
So what could possibly go wrong there?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not a natural career path for posh boys.
Not really, no.
To become rock stars.
Because you look at, like, say, for example, my strong era of music is the 90s. So from the Stone Roses, who I still absolutely love and thank God Ian Brown was standing out during the period. Because it's the only guy I can look up to anymore.
I just wish he'd do interviews.
Yeah.
He comments on social media. And he puts it in his songs.
That's right, yeah.
But he needs to do interviews. Van Morrison needs to do interviews.
Van Morrison as well, yeah.
They don't.
That's right.
I think they've got gatekeepers that block them.
Very, very, very likely, But it'd be lovely. I'd love to chew Ian Brown's ear and find out what really goes on. It'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
I've put out invitations to Van Morrison, Ian Brown, and Eric Clapton, to do an interview with me.
Yeah, and none of them come back.
And they've all been blocked.
Have they? Right. Okay. I was going to say about the 90s though. You had this working class thing going on. Where, say, Oasis, for example, the Gallagher brothers, that apparently I don't know the true story, but the story is that they're on the dole or the working class, that kind of thing, and then the all of a sudden these massive rock
There's
stars.
always a story.
There's always a story, of course, and it's fascinating. But that inspires the people like myself, because you look at those then, and you go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And you start looking up to them, and that's how the celebrity stardom works, isn't it? That's how you're drawn into it.
That's right. I used to be that way with DJs.
Yeah.
I used to look at other DJs.
Yeah.
And they served as my inspiration. And unfortunately, one of those inspirations for me was Tim Westwood.
Yeah.
Who has since, there's ongoing investigations
that's right,
into him.
That. Yeah.
But it's not looking good.
Yeah.
And I now completely disavow myself of any affiliation with him.
Yeah.
But, back in the day, back in the 90s, he had credibility.
Mm-hmm.
He had an amazing rap show on Capital Radio.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I saw a white guy, another public school boy, as it turns out.
Oh, okay.
His dad was a bishop.
Right, okay.
An Anglican bishop of Peterborough.
Right.
He went to a very exclusive public school in Norwich.
Right.
I didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
But that's his background. And I saw a white guy who had become successful in a black music genre rap and hip hop.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if he can do it, I must be able to.
That's what
all I've got to do is work hard and craft my DJing and get to know the music and do a bit of networking and stuff. And I had some moderate success, but nowhere near his level.
Do you think people are chosen then early?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think personally that was his allotted role. I think it was always on the cards that he was going to be inserted into society in some sort of influential, prominent role. And it was just decided that he was going to become the gatekeeper for the UK rap music scene.
So it's like you mentioned in the speeches today, your Bonos and your Bob Geldofs of these worlds who are very prominent in the global kind of way. They're always there giving it the this and whatever, aren't they? And just like massive influences through, especially Bob Geldof in the 80s with Live Aid and things like that. And then as in the public, you're just seeing this guy doing this incredible work for humanity. Yeah. But then there's just this other side.
Well, I bought it at the time.
Yeah.
I can remember that Band-Aid record came out, 1984.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there watching it on TV, me and my parents.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, who would have thought it? You know, he just looks like this scruffy ruffian, this drug-abusing rock star. And it turns out he's got a big heart. He's a lovely guy. Just goes to show you can't tell by appearances because they bought the public image of him that was being sold.
That's right, yeah.
As most people did. It wasn't until years and years later that I discovered the true nature of Bob Geldof.
Wow.
And I realised that this nice guy image, Saint Bob, was all a crafted construct. Paulie Yates said that, his partner.
Yeah.
Who got into a relationship with Michael Hutchence.
That's right.
In excess.
Yeah.
So she left Bob for Michael Hutchence.
That's right.
Didn't go down too well with Bob.
No.
Didn't end too well for Michael.
No, it didn't.
Who turned up dead in a hotel room in Sydney on the 22nd of November, the Kennedy assassination date, in 1997.
Yeah.
And at the time, Paulie Yates commented publicly that Bob Geldof had something to do with Michael Hutchence's death. That's what she said.
Wow.
She said, it makes me sick. People think he's this wonderful guy, this saint, but he's the devil, or words to that effect.
Wow.
And Michael Hutchence's parents had similar things to say about him.
Yeah.
Then in 2000, not too long afterwards, Paulie Yates turns up dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Of an overdose.
That's right.
And then a few years after that, the daughter that they had together, Peaches Geldof, turns up dead of an overdose.
I know. It's very dark, isn't it?
It is dark, yeah. It's very dark information. It doesn't do well to wallow in it for too long.
No, you can't do that because otherwise it lowers your vibration.
That's
but
right.
I think awareness is important as well as we navigate through these things. I think that's why your work's so important, because it brings awareness. But like you say, you can still enjoy the craft. So even though it's like, for example, like say again, the Doors, for example, you know that what they're really about now.
Yeah.
But you can still stick a record. It's not the same. I must admit, for me, it never feels the same anymore. I can't have that same feeling that I did.
Yeah.
But I can still enjoy it in a way. I just try and switch off a little bit.
Yeah.
And just go and sing along if I have to, or just but it does change.
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's not quite the same.
No.
You can still get some enjoyment from it. You're
Yeah.
just aware now of who these bands really were.
That's right.
And I'm finding that what you have to replace it with is truth and freedom music, authentic music.
Yeah.
It is out there.
Oh, there's plenty.
It's not the stuff you hear on the radio. It's not bands or musicians that people have heard of. They're not household names,
No.
obviously, because they've not sold
They
out.
won't be allowed to,
But
will they?
you had your event at the weekend, and there was some great music. Just as I was loading up my car with my books to leave, I was hearing the musician that was on,
Yeah.
and he was singing songs about what's going on in the world and
That's
truth
right.
and
Yeah.
standing up for your rights and all this. And
Yeah.
that's exactly the sort of stuff we should be listening to. And it is out there. If
It
you look
is.
for it, you can find it.
If you're enjoying everything that we're doing here at Drake, Michigan, please subscribe, ring my bell, and let's enjoy this journey together.
But isn't it interesting though? Because we can talk about that as well. Because the Sex Pistols, they were meant to give that, and they created a movement from the Sex Pistols, didn't they? I suppose in the punk side of thing. But again, that wasn't what they were really about, were they?
It was a construct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole punk scene was a construct.
So
I remember listening to a podcast series with Jan Irvin and Joe Atwill from years ago called Unspun.
Yeah.
And they sort of went genre by genre and just unpicked these constructs. And they did a series of shows on punk and new wave.
Right.
And just showed how that whole thing was just a put-up job. The Sex Pistols were a boy band, effectively.
Yeah.
They were patched together by Malcolm McLaren.
That's right.
To push certain agendas. Malcolm McLaren was a situationist. That's this highbrow intellectual sort of anarchist movement that came out of France.
Yeah.
A guy called Guy Debord.
Oh, right, okay.
And a lot of rock musician managers were situationists, so they bought into all of that.
Right.
So Malcolm McLaren, manager of the Sex Pistols, Bernie Rhodes, manager of the Clash, was a situationist.
No way.
Also Tony Wilson.
Was he?
Of Factory Records, New Order.
Really?
Situationist.
No.
So they were all part of this sort of intellectual movement, which could be construed as a mind control cult, I guess. And that was filtering down into the bands that they controlled.
Wow.
So when you've got those three high-profile managers sitting in those prominent positions, controlling these bands, if you're going to be honest about it and mature about it, you have to accept that there are agendas being pushed there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you think the artists know what they're doing? A lot of them? Or all of them?
Well, it's a good question. I think some of them will be clued in.
Yeah.
If you come from an important bloodline family, and you've been given your role as a result of that, you'll be clued in.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Jim Morrison knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
I think Bono knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
There was a great video, I wish I could find it again. It was many years ago.
Yeah.
Bono meeting some African world leader.
Right.
Like a president of one of the African nations.
Okay.
And he walks into the room and hangs up his coat on the peg.
Yeah.
And he's sighing. And he's showing all the signs of just not wanting to be there.
Right.
It looks like he's totally reluctant to have to do this. And he's like, and then like, okay, let's get this over with. And then he goes up to the guy and shakes his hand and does all the pleasantries and stuff. But it strongly suggests that he just doesn't want to be there.
Right.
That he's being forced
Playing
to do
a role.
Yeah. So many of them know what they're doing, and they probably do it reluctantly. But I'm sure many others are not fully clued in.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to a lot of these photographs that you see, the promotional photographs, where they're covering the one eye. I'm not actually going to do it, because otherwise somebody out there...
Oh, they'll take a picture of it.
They'll
and
freeze frame the video.
They will.
Showing me doing it.
Guaranteed.
Saying, I told you he's a Satanist.
Yeah, guaranteed.
So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
But they cover their eye. They do the pyramid symbol. They do the 666 symbol.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the photographer is telling them to do it. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what would look really cool? Just put your
Just
hand
do
over
that, do
your
that.
right eye. That's it. Yep, do that. And then put your fingers up like this, you know. And they do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
But they don't have any real comprehension of what it means.
Yeah.
So they're total pawns, many of them.
Yeah, sure.
So again, it comes to grades and levels.
Yeah, because people can wake up obviously during that, like say for example, let's say Ian Brown for example. So Ian Brown, there are photographs of Ian Brown doing that.
There are, yeah.
But then, as we know over the past few years, Ian has one of the very few to actually open, like I say, he doesn't do interviews, but on his tweets, they were very powerful, and he took a lot of shit.
Yep.
And I'll give him massive credit
His
on
own
that.
fan base turned against him.
The Stone Roses fans turned against him.
Yep.
I saw that, and he took a lot of hate.
Yep.
But he
Van
continued.
Morrison, same way.
Same way, yeah. So I'll give those guys respect in that.
Yeah. So there's photographs of Ian doing those symbols that we've just discussed.
Yeah.
And we have to give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of most of those photos were from early in his career.
That's right.
And if he'd been instructed to do them,
Yeah, exactly.
it's possible he didn't know what they meant.
Absolutely.
And now that he does,
Yeah.
he's looking back on it and regretting having done it.
It'd be lovely to talk to him about
It would.
that kind of photo shoot, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And get an understanding of
I
what happens.
ideally wish he would do interviews.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that they knew him.
Yeah.
And they said that they were talking to him about my book, but that they'd seen me mention in one of my videos the fact that early in his career...
It was me, I think,
was it
at
you?
The Crown. Yeah, when you yeah, it was me.
Right.
Yeah, and then he
said, "Oh, I was going to read Mark's book, but I'm not going to bother now."
That's right. And that's what he tweeted. I remember it, and I mentioned it to yourself.
But if on the off chance if Ian is watching this video,
we would love,
or if anyone knows how to reach him, I'd love to sit down with him
and talk
and have an open chat.
Yeah,
and we can talk about all this stuff.
Absolutely,
I'd love to do that.
It'd be great knowledge to know anyway, wouldn't it? Of what I'd love to know what the process is of why people are putting all their hands over the eyes and stuff, because most do it, don't they?
Yeah, most of them.
Most of them. Yeah. And then the photographers themselves, if they are directing it, why?
Well, they've got to know. The photographer that's telling you to do it has got to know what's going on.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
So a lot of these photographers are going to be high-level initiates. Stands to reason.
Yeah. Like I said, levels, but layers as well. Everywhere, just different layers of all this satanic corruption. There's
compartmentalization as well.
Yeah.
So I've spoken to quite a few people that have worked in the music industry. I get so many emails now. I get emails from producers, audio engineers, record company executives, people that have just worked at every level in the industry.
Yeah.
And a lot of them say to me, "I've read your books and I've looked at the sort of stuff you say.
Yeah.
And I worked in the industry for 25 years and I can say I didn't see any of that."
Right, okay.
But just because you didn't see it
doesn't mean it's not.
Doesn't mean it doesn't go on.
No, but you can see that in a lot of ways of what's happened in the past few years. Just because an individual doesn't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
That's right.
Because that's, again, cognitive dissonance anyway.
And also, what's that famous quote? A man's understanding of something depends directly, or a man's salary depends directly on his understanding of something. I can't remember the exact quote. But the implication is that if your salary and your job depends on you not understanding something, you're not going to understand it because you don't want to, because you want to protect your salary and your pension.
And a lot of people will do that. And I think a lot of people as well are just going to go in and do their hours and come home as well and just do their tasks.
They don't want to rock the boat.
No.
I mean, in the last 3 years, how many nurses and doctors do we think there are who know what's going on, but they don't want to rock the boat, they don't want to upset things.
There's going to be a lot.
They go along to get along, and they do what they need to do to feed their family, pay the mortgage. Yeah. There's probably an uncomfortable feeling within them while they're doing it, but they don't know how else they would pay their bills.
Well, I wouldn't like to be that person that has that, because I don't know where that soul's going to go afterwards with what's going on. That's quite it's quite a tricky one, really. If you, as we touched on it before, if your soul is saying something, I think you should listen.
That's right.
That's your gut is really important.
The real heroes of the past 3 years are those that have lost livelihoods and businesses.
100%.
As a result of doing what they know to be right.
Definitely. I said it. Matt Hoy sang for us on Saturday night at the festival, and I announced Matt on, and I was saying, look, there are many heroes in this marquee at this point.
Unsung heroes.
Yeah, but if you're going to stand up and prepared to lose everything for the truth, for your truth, then you're a fucking hero.
That's right. That's good karma.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good for the soul.
100%.
Yeah.
And I've got goosebumps now.
Yeah.
Because that's true. That's so true.
Yeah. I mean, you're living proof of the fact that money, income, business isn't everything. It's not what these lives are about.
No, I agree with you. It's not. But we are in that world where we do need to navigate with this energy, this promissory note, and we do need to do that. But we can manifest that anyway. We don't need to do the wrong thing. We can still listen to our gut, and then I believe that we are guided and looked after.
Yeah,
that's my belief. And we lost everything, I was prepared to do that because I know, even though it made me poorly at the time, I know good things will come anyway, and it is doing.
Yeah.
It is doing.
You've got to have that trust, that faith.
Yes.
That things are going to work out if you're on your rightful path.
Absolutely.
And you know when you are.
Yeah, you do.
I know I'm doing what I came here to do now.
Yeah.
Took me a long time to realise.
Yeah.
But I meet so many others who will say the same thing.
Yeah.
They're on their rightful path. And you do get looked after.
Yeah, you do. 100% you do.
If you like, spiritually.
I think so.
And like I said, you burn all the bridges back to your old life. You couldn't go back if you wanted to. Not that I ever would want to.
No, I'm the same. I couldn't.
But you can only move forward. You can never go back.
Yeah. You've got to surrender almost. That's what I found. And it was interesting because when we lost the pub, and you met me then, right at the very last weekend, really. We were closing the pub within days when you guys came and did that.
One last party,
and it was wonderful. But I'd made a decision to get myself a job because I needed to look after my family. I've always been the provider. My partner's disabled. We got kids, blah, blah, blah. And I got this job, and within no time at all, I felt very poorly. I wasn't meant to do that job. And I didn't realise at the time how, I full of anxiety. I was literally crying before I was going into work on a Monday morning or the Sunday nights was dreadful because the week ahead was full of fear. And I had to surrender. I had to basically surrender to the universe and go, I can't do this job. So what's next? Because I can't do it. Yeah. And then Kev phoned me up out of the blue. I went on a bit of a self-healing journey, and Kev phoned me up, my mate, who we're doing the Drake Michigan project with, out of the blue in the summer, and we started going. And my family, we've ended up in social housing, but it ended up being the best thing for us as well, because it just released a lot of pressure. And now my life is building wonderfully. We're heading in the right direction because I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And I know that, and I can feel that. I mean, the weekend proves it in a way. Financially, I think it's not a success in any... But it's, again, defining success, because I think financially we're probably at a loss. But it didn't matter, because the energy and the lives, hopefully, that have been changed from being there. It's a great weekend.
I'm sure you'll get to do another one.
I'm going to sleep first.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, sleep first. But yeah, I'm really pleased. And like I say, we had some great speaking. You were the first person on the list for me, Mark. I wanted you to be there. So I'm really grateful.
Happy to have been there.
Yeah, grateful. Can I ask, before we even get to close this off, one of the first videos I found of yourself, was Paul McCartney. I've got to talk about a little bit about that, if you don't mind, because it's just a fascinating subject. And I ended up, during the crazy period, I did actually fall ill. I don't know what it was. I felt poisoned, actually.
I did too.
Yeah.
October 21, I got very ill.
Yeah, and it was around that time, I think, for myself. But so I downloaded the Billy Shears from listening to your lectures. I'll download the Billy Shears book.
Right.
And I thought it was incredible. I loved it. And I became more of a, funnily enough, I became more of a Beatles music fan from that as well, interestingly, because from Sgt. Pepper's onwards, I just fell in love with the music. And from before that, I've no interest. Now, the Paul McCartney thing is obviously fascinating. Did you change your path on any shape on that? Because it was kind of fall was and Billy Shears and everything else. Because we can be taken down paths, and we'll say it, and then there's nothing wrong with being that either, is there?
Yeah. So I remember first hearing about the idea that Paul McCartney died in 1966.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s when I was at school.
Yeah.
Some kid at school was talking about the Abbey Road sleeve. And he was saying, because he's barefoot on the zebra crossing, it means he's dead.
That's right.
And at the time, I just remember thinking, well, that's ridiculous. That doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then years later, it came up in my research, the idea that that's not really Paul McCartney. So I threw myself down that rabbit hole, went about 500 miles down, and just completely absorbed myself in the whole subject.
Yeah.
So in Musical Truth Volume 1, there's an entire chapter on the Paul is dead conspiracy.
Yeah.
15,000 words.
Yeah.
I've included all the clues that were on the albums and the
Yeah.
sleeves and the photographs
That's
and
right,
interviews and stuff like that. And so early on, I bought into the idea that the original Paul McCartney died in 1966.
Yeah.
We're told September 11th. That's the most popular date for it.
Yeah.
9/11/66.
That's right.
And I looked at all the anomalies between the Paul of pre-66
Yeah.
and the one that we have now, that
Yeah,
we've had
yeah.
since. And I could see that it's just a different guy.
Right.
You know, height differences, facial differences, differences in mannerisms. So I was very invested in the idea that the guy today is an imposter, Billy Shears, William Shepherd.
Yeah.
But then, by the time I published Musical Truth 2 in 2018, I had certain voices whispering in my ear saying, it's not as simple as that.
Oh, okay.
If you look at photographs from before 1966, you will see the guy that we have today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does that work? So then I concluded that, yes, there have been two Paul McCartneys.
Okay.
Definitely two different guys.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean the original guy died in 1966.
Yeah, yeah.
Because these people that were speaking to me were saying you see both Pauls all through the timeline.
Interesting.
Pre-66 and post-66, you see both of them.
Interesting.
Then I discovered the memoirs of Billy Shears
Yeah.
through Mike Williams, Sage of Quay. And Mike has done an incredible, monumental amount of research into that whole idea
Right,
of
okay.
Billy Shears
Yeah, yeah.
taking on the role of Paul McCartney
Yeah.
and all the occult elements to it, the ritualistic elements and stuff. And one problem I always had was that there was one particular picture of Paul McCartney
Yeah.
from, I think it was 1960. It was taken in Hamburg
Right.
by Astrid Kircher,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
who was the girlfriend of Stuart Sutcliffe,
Yeah.
the original bass player.
That's right.
She was a photographer and she did a photo shoot. And there's a very young McCartney and he looks a lot like the guy we've got today,
Okay.
a younger version of him.
Right.
And I approached Mike about this and I said, this is a problem that I've got because this guy wasn't supposed to have come on the scene until 66. And Mike said that photographs and footage on the internet now has been doctored to make the original, the Paul we have today, the imposter, appear as if he entered the timeline much earlier.
Oh, wow.
So Mike's contention is that you can't trust anything you see on the internet, anything in digital form. Because
No.
pictures, video footage, these recent films, the 8 Days a Week film, the Peter
Yeah.
Jackson Get Back films,
Yeah.
he and others say that that's propaganda
Yeah.
to reinforce the idea that it's always been the original Paul.
Right.
So
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if these photos have been doctored.
Yeah.
But I'm coming back around now. I seem to have gone full circle.
Oh, really?
I'm coming back around to the idea that there was a ritualistic sacrifice of the original Paul
Interesting.
in 66
Wow.
and that this guy Billy Shears has been playing the role since. One thing I can say with absolute certainty
Yeah.
is there has been more than one Paul McCartney.
Well, there's different ear shapes and all sorts, isn't
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
It's quite obvious it's not.
You need to look at photographs of him with Jane Asher, his girlfriend in the 60s.
Right, right.
Because there's some photos where Paul, you can see it's a different guy.
yeah.
The original Paul
Yeah.
is about the same height
It's a
as Jane
rounder
Asher.
face, isn't there? As
Yeah,
well?
rounder face. He's about the same height as Jane Asher.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after Billy came on the scene in 66,
Bit
there's
tall.
photographs of Paul and Jane, and Paul's towering above her, way
That's
taller.
right, yeah.
And you can see their feet. You can see he's not wearing stack heels. So that can't account for the height difference. And when you look at the photographs of Paul and Jane together, it becomes so obvious.
Wow. Wow, it's mad, isn't it? But this is the thing. Nowadays, it's even worse, isn't it? Because AI and everything else, they can
Yeah.
create anything.
So
how
the
would you
worst thing
trust
of all
anyone?
is the realization that they've got away with it.
Yeah, yeah.
They've been getting away with it for
Yeah.
almost 60 years. And I know there's a lot of researchers, there's a lot of vigilant people, a lot of awake and aware types that know damn well
Yeah.
that there's been more than one Paul McCartney. But in terms of mainstream normie land, there's no official recognition of the fact that he was replaced. So they've got away with that psyop. They get away with everything, don't they?
They seem to do, yeah.
They've got away with Convid. The biggest hoax, the biggest scam, the biggest psyop in the history of the human species.
Yeah, they got away with it at the moment.
They got away with it. And now it seems they're coming back for another go.
It's crazy times, Mark, for sure. It's it's a spiritual war, like we're saying, but you've got to, this is where you've got to look within. I've always said we've got to look within, and we've got to trust that gut again. It's just something's prodding you down there, and it's saying something's not quite right. Have a listen, because this is what tricks us. This is what tricks us. Our senses and everything else, the perceptions we have, we get tricked by them.
Yeah.
But something will be telling you something's not quite right.
But they, the controllers, have been unleashing military-grade psychological
100%.
warfare on us. Yeah. So it's no wonder people have been tricked.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because they're unleashing an arsenal of weaponry.
Definitely. It's nobody's fault.
Which is as extreme as it gets. Like I said in the talk yesterday, they're employing master psychologists, behavioural scientists, social scientists, who know exactly how the human psyche works and how to trick it and manipulate it.
I don't know people sleep at night, mate.
Exactly. How can you do a job like that and be okay with it and sleep at night?
Like you say, really? It's got to be demonic, hasn't it? You know, how can they do? I don't know.
Well, they've got to be psychopaths. They've got to just, all of them have got to be psychopaths, sociopaths, because I don't think a regular person could do that.
I don't actually think a true human being can harm another unless it was in defence. I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah. And most people, like you were saying earlier, I think they are inherently good.
Yeah.
They don't want to do harm to others.
No.
They want to help others if they can.
Definitely.
They've just been tricked.
Yeah.
So all those people that were masking up during, the first lockdowns and grassing up their neighbours.
Yeah, but I think they're doing the right thing.
They believe their neighbours were going out there spreading this deadly disease and harming others.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously they were misguided. Obviously they were ignorant and hadn't done the research. But they themselves believed they were doing the right thing.
100%. And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. That's what I say as well. If we own up to it, just like it's fine.
The excuses are getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah.
The excuse that I didn't know, I didn't realise that this was a genocidal agenda. Really? Is it possible to say that anymore? With everything that we now know, with all the research that's been done, with all the brave broadcasters and speakers and authors that have stuck their head above the parapet, all the books that have been written in the last 2 or 3 years, all the documentary films, all the public talks and the demos and the rallies.
Yeah, exactly.
Can anyone really make the claim now that they didn't know this whole thing was a massive psyop? It's getting flimsier and flimsier.
Well, it's more obvious, isn't it? The veil's being lifted, though. That's what I think. It's
anyone still ignorant has made the choice to be ignorant at this stage in the game.
I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll go with that.
They don't want to know. Everyone has heard someone say in the last 3.5 years that what's been going on is not what you think it is.
That's right.
Whether it's somebody at work, that nutty uncle, that crazy neighbour.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's heard it said. So they've had the opportunity to look into it, do the research, as we have.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've chosen not to do that. There are consequences for willful ignorance, spiritual consequences. Consequences for your soul.
There is. And that's why we're here with free will. You choose.
Right.
But you can choose another path, though.
Right. Ignorance is a choice.
Yeah.
So is knowledge.
I've always said it that, everyone is playing a part. Everyone. But the ignorant ones are almost the worst for it, really, because they've not chose a side to sit him out of it, keeping out of it.
Yeah.
And it's about balance, really. But
when you get really high level spiritual and take a really high consciousness perspective on things, people will say that those who are remaining in ignorance are facilitating our soul journeys.
Yeah.
Because we need them as adversaries. We need them to present challenges for us to rise above.
Yeah, yeah.
And I get that. But the ultimate goal of these human experiences must be to live freely.
I think so.
It's freedom.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we gravitate towards.
Yeah.
We want to be free. Yeah. We don't want to be enslaved.
No. We didn't come for that.
So the battle has to be winning freedom.
Absolutely.
Overcoming tyranny.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And there's two choices really, and it's love and fear.
Yeah.
And vibration is important, like you say, because in terms of manifestation, you're saying when you're on your path, when you're on the right path, things come into your life the way they're meant to do. So if you make that choice, you'll find your life is going to improve. You might have difficulty. You might have a clearance at first. That's what I find with things. It's like once you've made a decision, you might find friends will leave you, or family
you are going to go through some
you.
Turmoil.
You will go through your turmoil.
Yeah. Everyone that I know, and I really only associate now with sort of awake and aware truther types.
Yeah.
To call them that.
Yeah.
Every single individual that I know has been through suffering and hardship. Last 2 or 3 years, and is going through it now. And people email me every day. Maybe their relationship has broken down, long-term marriage has ended, their children don't talk to them anymore. Yeah, they've lost their jobs, their business. They've had illness. Yeah, mental illness. A family member's committed suicide. I'm hearing all these stories. So we're really, really being tested.
Oh, definitely.
And we're all going through some stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody's going through something. And it seems that's necessary.
I think so. It is like a clearance.
Yeah.
But that releases the shackles, I think, sometimes as well, even though that period's tough. Yeah. Once that period is over, because everything's temporary. Everything. Yeah. Then you start opening up a bit then.
If you can come through it, get to the other side and look back on it, and say, what a bloody nightmare that was. Yeah. But from it, I've learned this, and this.
Exactly.
Then that's growth.
That's the growth. That's the journey. Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. But like you say, we're here to be free.
It's terrible when you're going through it.
It's hard work.
And I wonder, the stories people have.
Yeah.
The stories people tell me.
Yeah.
There was a lady at this conference in Nottingham that I was at the weekend who was talking about her son was institutionalised in psychiatric wards for 29 years.
My word.
And they tortured him, gave him electroshock, solitary confinement, all of that. And then after 29 years, he died. And I was just thinking, how do you get through that? For her as a mother.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you ever recover from that? But people do. They find the strength somehow.
Yeah, the human spirit is incredible. Yeah. And I think this is where they've underestimated humanity. Yeah. Because whatever these dark agendas are, and whatever side you are in terms of if you believe that there's a devil, a Satan that's ruling this planet, or whatever that is, because that's my feeling anyway. But whatever you think, the fact is, love always conquers. Anyway.
Yeah.
The light will always outshine. Always.
I think a strategic error that the psychopaths have made is that they like to lump all of us in together as useless eaters.
Yeah.
So they'll take the sort of people that attend your event and all the great events that I go to and lump us in with all the mask-wearing sort of Coronation Street watching, normies, NPCs, whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
And they just think we're all goyim, cattle, whatever. Mm-hmm. They've underestimated the fact that many of us are able to rise above that and have. And that human spirit, when it's got a flame lit under it, is an incredible thing.
It's powerful.
And they've underestimated that.
I think so.
And that is what ultimately is going to be their downfall.
Without a doubt.
I'm not claiming that's going to happen tomorrow, next week, or even in my lifetime.
I agree.
There are many times that I feel I'm not going to live to see it. Maybe my children won't live to see it. Yeah. Maybe it's 100 years off.
Yeah.
But at some point.
I've said the same thing. Me and my partner have said the same thing. We might not see it in our lifetime. But ultimately...
We're sowing the seeds.
We're part of that. Yeah, we have to play our part.
Yeah.
It's about tipping the balance and educating.
What gives me goosebumps is imagining a situation 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Where the demonic control system that we've currently got has been put down.
Yeah.
And humanity has attained some semblance of collective freedom.
Yeah.
And people are looking back at these times. They're going, what must it have been like to live in the 2020s? What must those people have gone through? And they're looking they're looking at the books, the documentary films, all the evidence that's been left behind of what life was like in the early 2020s and what we all went through. And they're devouring it, reading those books, reading those words, and thinking, wow, those people went through that. Really gives me goosebumps to imagine.
You know what you're saying there is so important as well, because I was thinking in terms of the way the digital shit that's going on at the moment and the fact that they can manipulate digital stuff so easily.
Oh, yeah.
People need to write. They need to document stuff and they need to keep hold of it.
We need paper books, mate.
We do.
Because everything that's on the internet right now could be gone in a heartbeat forever.
Absolutely. There needs to be a way of documenting the whole thing because they will, as they have done, they will change history again.
Yep. That's why we need physical books, actual books.
Yeah.
Keep paper books alive.
Definitely.
And everyone needs to read more.
Well, this is the thing. It's like this digital prison, this digital world. We're missing that tangible product, aren't we? That. It's like, again, and you know, not to go into it, but the albums for themselves, you know, the fact that the way society's gone now, you know, Spotify and just listening to the odd track here and there, the throwaway society, when there was nothing more pleasurable for me as getting a vinyl album and listening to it from the beginning to the end and reading the lyrics and all.
With a lavish gatefold sleeve with amazing artwork.
The artwork and the smell of it all and the experience of having that. And the kids these days, they don't have that.
Yeah, now it's a fucking icon on a smartphone screen.
Exactly.
It's not really the same.
It's not the same. And it's so, as you touched on before, it's so easy. If it was easy to be manipulated with Paul McCartney with the pictures that are now in a digital format, and let's be honest, they've been able to manipulate those photographs anyway. What do you know what's real? You could go on Twitter now and you could have a broadcast of Donald Trump or whatever, and you don't even know it's really him anymore. You just wouldn't know.
Well, it's not Joe Biden.
It's certainly not Joe Biden. No, it's certainly not. You know, but
that's another one. The President of the United States. I mean, I know it's a puppet role.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't have any real power, but supposedly he's the most powerful man in the world, and it's not fucking him.
I know, yeah.
And they've got away with it.
And if it is him, it's a guy that is clearly not capable. It's so
it does make me wonder, because they could have put anyone in that role.
Yeah.
Why did they choose a geriatric bloody guy with dementia, a bad actor?
Because it's just taking the piss.
Yeah, it's almost as if they're rubbing our noses in it.
They are.
It's either satanic mockery, because they think we're just so ignorant.
Yeah.
That they're having a right old laugh winding us up, or
they're trying to wake you up.
They're trying. Well, I don't even want to go down that route, because there's certain communities who will claim that there are certain plans in place.
Of course, I don't go down that route at all.
But you know, it's also obvious now that it does feel as if they're trying to get people to wake up sometimes.
Well, come on, guys. Well, before we close, I want to say thanks again, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Sure.
But what's the plans for Mark Devlin now? What's your journey? What do you see coming now? And what level of success matters to you as an individual now, going forward?
Well, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, my definition of success for me would be to be prominent as a DJ, for people to know my name, to be on loads of flyers, to be on loads of lineups, and to be earning a decent amount of money and to be travelling the world. I've always loved travelling. My value system's completely changed now. I'm not... It's so funny how it's worked out, because I used to want to be all over flyers and at festivals and stuff like that, and now I don't really care about that. I want to get my message out. But with all the offers that are coming in, I'm finding myself top of the bill on flyers. And it's not something I crave now, but it's happening anyway.
It's happening.
And I'm getting offers to speak here, there, everywhere, all over the place. And it's all just happening. Outside of my
You're flowing
control.
with that, aren't you?
But it's never about me. It's not about me anymore.
I
used to have a bit of an ego as a DJ. I think you have to.
Of course.
To succeed in that game.
Yeah.
You've got to carry yourself with a bit of swagger and be a bit big-headed. But I'm not like that now. And it's not about me. It's about the message. I just want the truth out there. I want people to wake up to what's going on before it's too late. And I want freedom. I want freedom for everyone. That's what's important to me. And what I do with my books and my live talks and my interviews is just try and attain that. These are a means to an end. I do all this work for those reasons. People might think, oh, I'm doing it because I've still got an ego and I like seeing my name up in lights. It's not that.
No.
It's not that. It's just that I've had certain training and I've got certain skills and certain experience, which means that I can be very effective in reaching large numbers of people. And I have. I mentioned in the talk that I did yesterday that I've been successful through talking about the manipulations of the music industry in drawing people into other truths. So if you can pique somebody's interest by talking about the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or the Doors or David Bowie, you've got them. You've got their attention.
I agree.
They're listening to you.
Yeah.
And if you can make them see that that industry is completely controlled and is run by occultists and is part of a much larger control structure, then you've got them on the first rung of the ladder. And then hopefully if you've engaged their curiosity, they're going to go away, do their own research and see how that fits into the much bigger picture of what's going on. And I've had a very successful track record of doing that through this work. It's been a great method of engaging people on the path to truth. So I intend to keep doing that for as long as I'm able.
You're doing amazing work.
I don't know what the future holds, but I'm just going to keep on trucking,
keeping the flow
through.
See, the TikTok generation would I think they would engage and stuff like that. You know, I bet it's probably already happening. I don't really go on TikTok, but you know, I can imagine like these short videos of expressing, like, say, Britney Spears, for example, as an individual, sadly, who's clearly been mind controlled. You know, the boom, quick, this is what's happened to Britney, and then that plants a seed. Well, what's going on here? You know, it's getting that.
There are
kind of
some
thing out.
videos, some little snippets on TikTok which are really good. So people are going on there and using that platform to share some of this truthful information. And it's going to be engaging large numbers of young people because so many young people go on TikTok.
Definitely.
I'm still on Facebook because that's my generation. I don't do TikTok. But, you know, Gen Z, so-called, my children's generation.
Oh, yeah, what is that?
They're all about TikTok. So the more videos of this nature that are getting on that platform, the more young people are going to get to see them.
That's right.
And that is the generation we have to reach. The social engineers are after their minds and their souls.
The souls.
So we have to be after them as well.
Yeah.
We're clamouring for that generation. We want to get them engaged in truth and freedom.
Right.
They want to take them down a very dark path.
That's right. And that's the mission.
Yeah.
That is the mission. Mark, how do people find you then? How will people get hold of your work?
So my hub website is djmarkdevlin.com. And there's links there to all my podcasts, all my videos. My video platforms are Odyssey, BitChute and Rumble.
Yeah, you were taken off YouTube.
I've been kicked off of 3 YouTube channels. I have actually just started a 4th. Right, and I'm posting snippets on there just because so many people are on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if I can pull them over from YouTube to BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble.
Yes.
That's the idea.
I understand that, yeah.
So my books are available on Amazon. But
Yeah.
if you don't want to go down the Amazon route, you can get them from me direct.
Brilliant.
Just got to drop me an email. You'll find my email on my website, djmarkdevlin.com.
Fantastic.
I've also got an events page on there, which details all my upcoming talks. I do loads of conferences, festivals.
Yes.
I'm actually due to go to Las Vegas in October.
Wow.
And I'm doing a mini speaking tour of Australia in early November.
That's amazing.
I probably shouldn't even mention this new stupid bloody variant that they're talking about and the idea of lockdowns in America coming back, because I don't want to jinx the trip.
No.
So I'm going to have to keep a close eye on how things develop.
Yeah.
But at the moment,
you're heading that
those
way.
trips are still in place. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the very best, Mark, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. I highly recommend Mark's work. If you, especially like me, if you're a music fan, it may change your life. It has for me.
It's always better to know, though.
But it's better to know, and it's an amazing, fascinating subject. And like Mark said, you can bring that up with anybody in your family then, and then take them on a new path and really plant those seeds to what's really happening. So,
I mean, who, when you say Paul McCartney's been replaced and they hear that for the first time, who is going to go, oh, I'm not going to look into that?
Oh, no, yeah.
The only response that's ever going to bring is, oh, that sounds ridiculous. I must look further into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Don't be stupid.
you are going to get people looking if you can plant that seed.
Absolutely. And that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to start. Subscribe to the Drake Michigan channel. We really appreciate your support. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Mark Devlin. It's been an absolute honour to have you here and an honour to have you at the festival, Mark. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.